Hello everyone! The story of Archimonde does not begin with Archimonde himself. It begins with the Titans and Sargeras. The Titans had a mission to bring order to the universe. They shaped the worlds, they created life, and took out those who were against their vision. The Titans were led by the Pantheon, and their champion was called Sargeras, and his task was defending their mission against the darkness of the universe. He imprisoned countless of demons, dreadlords, and all kinds of evil creations. He performed this duty for thousands of years, but over time he began to doubt. If the universe was supposed to be all about order, then why was it fighting the Titans so much? Why was there so much evil and chaos in the world? Was that perhaps the way it's supposed to be? He talked with the other members of the Pantheon about this, but they couldn't help him. They weren't able to convince him of the truth of their mission, and Sargeras left the Pantheon. The corruption within himself, the doubt and despair, they started to manifest on the outside. Great flames burst forth out of his body, and Sargeras decided that the Titans' their mission was folly. That order was not the way to go, and that chaos was the only truth of the universe. His mission was no longer to protect the work of the Titans, quite the opposite. His mission became to destroy their work. In order to do that, he would need an army, so he made his way to the demons that he had imprisoned and he set them free. The demons in return were more than willing to join his army, and the Burning Legion was created. Sometime after this, Sargeras found a planet called Argus, and on this planet were very powerful beings, namely the Eredar. The Eredar were ruled by three leaders, namely Velen, Archimonde and Kil'jaeden. Sargeras wanted them into his army, so he made contact with the leaders and he showed them a future in which they would receive incredible power, knowledge beyond their imagination, and planets full of loving subjects who would worship and honor them. Archimonde and Kil'jaeden were directly on board with this plan. They were taken away by Sargeras and his powers. But the prophet Velen felt like something wasn't quite right. He meditated on this problem, and the Naaru showed him the truth of the vision. The loving subjects were actually demons. The powers given would transform them into unnatural beings, and the planets they would come across would be destroyed. Velen saw that if they joined Sargeras, that the universe would be doomed, so he talked to his fellow leaders and showed them the truth. To his surprise, they didn't care about the truth. He had perhaps expected this from Archimonde, since he could sometimes easily be swayed if people played on his vanity. But Kil'jaeden, he had expected more of him. Kil'jaeden was the stronger one, he was decisive and he was wise, which is why Velen felt closer to Kil'jaeden, but even he was not convinced. They told Velen that this was just a vision in his mind, not a certain truth, and Velen realized that they now belonged to Sargeras. With the help of the Naaru, Velen managed to gather as many of his people as he could, and he was ready to escape the planet. Unknown to him was that Sargeras had already started to turn some of his people, and they nearly killed Velen and his followers. Only because of the Naaru was Velen able to escape the planet with his people, and Kil'jaeden was not happy about this. He took Velen's betrayal very personal, especially since they were so close, and he promised that he would find them and destroy them, even if it took 1,000 years. While Kil'jaeden kept himself busy with chasing the Draenei, Archimonde worked on serving his new master. Countless planets were waiting to be conquered, and he took great joy out of destroying each and every one of them. For countless years the Legion would move from planet to planet without much resistance, until Sargeras found a planet known as Azeroth. This story takes place around 10,000 years ago, and they call this the War of the Ancients. This story is told in 3 pretty thick novels, so I'll have to keep the story short and focus it on Archimonde. In this time period, the Night Elves were the most sophisticated race on Azeroth. They wielded powerful magic given to them by the Well of Eternity. We don't know much about the well, where it came from or why it was created, but what we do know is that it was a great source of power. The Night Elves were ruled by Queen Azora, and she, together with her advisor Savius and the Highborn, made first contact with Sargeras. They had been reckless with their magic, trying to draw more and more power from the well, and this had drawn the attention of the Legion. When Savius called for his queen to inspect their portal, Sargeras called out to her, mesmerized her, and told her that he was coming. From that moment on, Azora was taken away by Sargeras. She envisioned his arrival as cleansing the world of any imperfections, turning it into something as perfect as she was. She even dreamed of ruling at Sargeras' side and becoming his queen. The portal that they had created was not strong enough to transport Sargeras to Azeroth, so they had to make it bigger. They also couldn't instantly teleport all of the Legion for a massive invasion, it happened in stages. First they sent the Houndmaster Hakkar. Then they sent Manoroth, and they had the plan of sealing the well from all the other Night Elves. This way they could focus all the power from the Well of Eternity on the portal, but naturally this caused some resistance. The Night Elves were no longer able to use their magic to their full potential, so they moved to the palace to ask the queen what was going on. As the doors opened, the demons who were able to step through the portal marched out and they killed everything in sight. Queen Azshara didn't care that her people had to be murdered. She only cared about Sargeras and their perfect world, and she saw this as cleansing the world and getting it ready for Sargeras. The rest of the Night Elves who weren't part of Azshara's plans, they didn't just sit on their hands. A resistance was formed with thousands of Night Elves ready to save their queen. They loved her so much that they couldn't understand that it was their own queen who willingly led them all to their slaughter, so they placed the blame on Xavius and the other Highborn. Those that did realize what was going on, like Malfurion, Tyrande, Illidan, they played a key role in the resistance. Malfurion's skills as a druid allowed him to defeat Xavius, and he closed the portal that Manoroth had created, halting the Legion's invasion, but he didn't completely stop it. Too many demons had flowed through the portal already to instantly take back their cities, and this gave Manoroth enough time to reopen the portal and admit his failure to Sargeras. Except that the voice that replied to him from the other side of the portal, it was not Sargeras, but his left-hand man Archimonde. Sargeras was very disappointed in Manoroth, and it was time to bring out the big guns. Archimonde was a tactical mastermind with plenty of troops to spare, while the Night Elf Resistance had a very few strong players, but the troops were limited. Archimonde made good use of this. He trapped the Night Elves a couple of times, but what he didn't count on was that the dragons would aid the Night Elves. The dragon aspects had of course noticed what happened to the world, and it was Deathwing, by order of the Old Gods, who came up with a plan to create the Dragon Soul. A tiny disc fueled by a small portion of each aspect's their power, which would allow them to banish the Legion from Azeroth. What the aspects didn't know was that Deathwing was crazy and he was under the control of the Old Gods. He convinced the others to give up a portion of their power, while he kept all of his power to himself, making him stronger than the other aspects. Archimonde had calculated on maybe a few of the dragons showing up to fight, but the full might of 5 dragonflights was something he didn't see coming. When Deathwing arrived on the battlefield, he used the disc on the Legion and the Night Elves cheered while the demons retreated. Then Deathwing's madness took over, and he also used the disc against the Night Elves' resistance and even his fellow dragons. In his mind, all the world was against him, and they should all bow down to his power. He nearly wiped out the entire blue dragonflight, but using the Dragon Soul did not come without consequences, and Deathwing's body began to crack. The madness within him now started to show on the outside, so he left them all to fight over the world while he went to his cave and repair himself. Whoever won the war, Deathwing didn't care if it was the Burning Legion or the Night Elves. Either one of them would bow down to his immense power, and with that he left the battlefield. Deathwing and the Demon Soul, as they now called the disc, they were a problem for the future. For now, the Night Elf army had to hold against the Legion. Their commander, Lord Ravencrest, had been murdered, so Lord Destel Stareye took command over the resistance. Stareye was a noble, a fool, and he lacked the tactical mind of Ravencrest. Archimonde made full use of this, and he had his army retreat, and Stareye thought that his tactics were working, that they were able to push the Legion back. In his arrogance, he forgot to look up in the sky where massive amounts of Doomguards were flying over the troops, and in their hands they held pots with red liquid. They poured the liquid over the army, and anything that it touched died a horrible death with flesh melting away. Jarod Shadowsong tried to warn Stareye about what was going on, and he urged him to take command, reform the lines, and shoot the demons from the sky. Stareye, however, was stunned with seeing so much death around him and knowing that his tactics had failed. Up in the sky, Jarod saw more Doomguard coming, and he tried to pull Stareye away. Realizing that the commander wouldn't move, he turned his mount around and he rode off just in time before the liquid killed Stareye and all those around him. Archimonde's tactics could have crushed the Night Elves right there, but Jarod unwillingly took command of the host. He ordered archers to shoot down the Doomguard, and he reformed the lines, holding the land against the Legion. Now the Night Elves had a chance again. They had a commander not placed in his position because of his title or his status, but because he had a good mind on his shoulders and was able to lead. That did not mean that the victory would come easy, since the demons returned to the battlefield with even more numbers than before. The Legion had countless soldiers living for the pleasure of torment and battle, and Archimonde was not afraid to use them all. This meant that the Night Elves needed new allies, and Illidan Stormrage had talked with his teacher, the demigod Cenarius, about asking the other demigods for help. It took a very long time to convince the demigods to join the war effort, but when they did, they killed hundreds, thousands of demons. Being demigods did not make them invincible though, and as each demigod fell to the Legion, Cenarius pushed himself harder to make up for their loss. It seemed like Cenarius himself would fall to the endless numbers of the Legion, but his father Malorn stepped up and saved his life. He raced through the battlefield and he gave the Night Elves a chance to drag Cenarius back. Upon doing so, Archimonde himself entered the battle and he fought with this powerful demigod. Malorn is a white stag and he charged Archimonde with his antlers. He even gave him a good fight, but in the end Archimonde managed to place Malorn in a headlock. He slowly twisted the demigod's head in an awkward angle. A tremendous cracking sound echoed through the region, one that for just a brief moment caused all other noises to cease. Archimonde had killed Cenarius' father. In response, Malfurion unleashed his untapped powers as he tried to avenge the father of his mentor. Great vines spread around Archimonde, which didn't bother him at first. He ripped the small vines, he tried to throw them away, only to see the vines grab onto him again. More and more vines seized his body and he tried frantically to rip them away. Malfurion kept his eyes on the Demon Lord as he repeated his spell, and Archimonde realized that he couldn't free himself, so he clapped his hands and he vanished in a great ball of green fire. So great was Archimonde's power, and Malfurion felt like he had failed his teacher. Malfurion was able to send Archimonde away from the battlefield, at least for the moment, but he didn't vanquish him. Near the end of the story, Sargeras was very close to entering Azeroth, and Archimonde realized that he had failed his master. He would be punished, just like Manoroth would be punished, but that didn't mean that he would just sit and wait for it to happen. He was going to entertain himself, vent some of his rage upon those who foolishly thought that they could stand against the might of the Legion. Archimonde returned to the battlefield once more, killing demons, night elves, dragons, anything that stood in his path. Jarod Shadowsong saw the giant approaching, and although he knew that he wouldn't stand a chance, he was not about to surrender. He drew his blade and said, "I await you, Archimonde," and the archdemon laughed. To his credit, Jarod stood his ground while Archimonde beat him senseless, and Jarod himself wasn't even able to touch the Demon Lord. What they didn't know was that Malfurion and several others had made their way to the Well of Eternity, and they managed to use the Demon Soul to reverse the portal. This did not only stop Sargeras from entering Azeroth, but it also sucked the Legion back to where it came from. The Legion, Manoroth, Archimonde, none of them stood a chance against the power of the Well. As a side effect, the Well was imploding and the land of Kalimdor was about to split apart. The Night Elves fled all the way to Mount Hyjal as the world reshaped itself and turned into how we know it as today. Before this happened, Illidan managed to fill a couple of vials with water from the original well, and he used this on a lake of water to create a new well. The Night Elves had just ended a war against the Legion. A war started because of the original well and dabbling in magic, so they were not happy about this. They wanted to execute Illidan on the spot, but his brother Malfurion pleaded for his life and they imprisoned him instead. To turn this curse into a blessing, the dragon aspects decided to plant the World Tree Nordersail over the new well, and they gave it their blessing. For as long as the tree would stand, the Night Elves would be immortal, time would be at their side, and they would have a chance to learn. Before they imprisoned Illidan, he warned them that the Legion would return, that they would thank him one day for creating this well, and that they would need him once more. His warning would become a reality, since Sargeras still wanted to conquer the world, and during Warcraft 3, the Legion returns. Archimonde's brother Kil'jaeden had sent Ner'zhul to Azeroth to start weakening the world and getting it ready for their invasion. Ner'zhul recruited Kel'Thuzad into his army, and Kel'Thuzad created the Cult of the Damned. This cult worked on spreading the plague through Lordaeron, which would not only kill its citizens, but also turn them into the undead, turn them into Scourge, and make them servants of the Legion. Eventually even Arthas would become a Death Knight, and he resurrected Kel'Thuzad into a Lich. They moved to Dalaran, stole the Book of Medivh, and they summoned Archimonde into the world.
Come forth, Lord Archimonde. Enter this world and let us bask in your power. Tremble has come to this world. You have done well, little Lich. My plan worked perfectly.
Lord Archimonde, all the preparations have been made.
Very well, Tichondrius. Since the Lich King is of no further use to me, you Dreadlords will now command the Scourge.
As you wish, Lord Archimonde.
Soon, I will order the invasion to begin. But first, I will make an example of these paltry wizards by crushing their city into the ashes of history.
This has got to be a joke. What happens to us now?
Be patient, young Death Knight. The Lich King foresaw this as well. You may yet have a part to play in his grand design. Agir Udal Nutarus. Agir Modas Betalum Daltaro Ildas Glaku Retum Sethara Samanar Kurtamus Belar Sumaris Azaratha Rakas Ilkula. Belanora, Mordanos Melar, Ilamur no Falos Kada.
Archimonde placed the Dreadlord Tichondrius in charge of the Forsaken Army, and he destroyed Dalaran as a display of power. This placed Arthas and Kel'Thuzad out of the picture for now, and Archimonde had learned his lesson from the first invasion. There were defenses on Azeroth that he needed to be careful of, and he ordered Manoroth to take out the demigod Cenarius. For this task, Manoroth decided to use the orcs who once served Kil'jaeden, and he enslaved them once more. Grom Hellscream and his warriors were chopping trees in Ashenville, and this angered Cenarius and made him appear. He destroyed the orcs their base, and it looked like he was too powerful for even Grom Hellscream. One of the witch doctors in his army sensed a powerful dark power within the forest, which led the orcs to a pool full of Manoroth's blood. When they found the pool, the witch doctor warned Grom not to drink. One of his warriors told him that this was against all that Thrall had tried to change, but Grom didn't listen. He embraced the powers from the pool, used them to kill Cenarius, and in the process placed his people in chains.
Though you orcs failed the Burning Legion before, you will now serve us once again. No. We are free.
Now they were servants of the Legion again, just like they were back on Draenor. Thankfully for Grom, Jaina, Proudmoore and Thrall were told by the Prophet Medivh that they had to work together to stand against the Legion, and Jaina helped Thrall cleanse Grom from the demon's corruption. Afterwards, Grom and Thrall they teamed up, they found Manoroth, and Grom killed the Pit Lord, setting his people free and killing himself in the process. Archimonde didn't care about losing Manoroth since his mission was a success. Manoroth had killed the demigod Cenarius, opening the way further for the invasion.
The The undead are tireless. There's no way to outrun them.
You see, Lord Archimonde, we need not fear the Night Elves. The Scourge can...
Archimonde, after 10,000 years, how is it possible?
The Legion has returned to consume this world, woman. And this time, your troublesome race will not stop us. Fools! Let her slip away! Find her, damn you! Find her and kill her!
The day we have long feared has finally come. The Burning Legion has returned. I must cross the river and warn the rest of my sisters before all is lost.
Tyrande moved to awaken Malfurion from the Emerald Dream to help against the Legion's invasion. She also decided that it was a good idea to release Illidan from his prison, hoping that he would help them against the Legion. Illidan's love for Tyrande was so strong that even after 10,000 years of rotting away in jail, he still agreed to help her.
It has been an eternity, brother. An eternity spent in darkness.
Illidan, you were sentenced to pay for your sins, nothing more.
And who are you to judge me? We fought the demons side by side, if you recall.
Enough of this, both of you. What is done is done. My love, with Illidan's help, we will drive the demons back once again and save what is left of our beloved land.
Have you even considered the cost, Tyrande? This betrayer's aid may doom us all before the end. I will have nothing to do with this.
Malfurion wasn't okay with Tyrande's plan of setting Illidan free, so Illidan moved away from them and decided to do it on his own. He met with the Death Knight Arthas, who pointed him towards the skull of Kil'jaeden. The skull was being used by the Dreadlord Tychondrius to corrupt the forest, and its powers would give Illidan the strength to defeat him.
Foul demon! What have you done with my brother?
It is I, Furion. This is what I've become.
No. Illidan, how could you?
The leader of the undead has been destroyed, and the forests will heal in time.
At the cost of your soul? You are no brother of mine. Be gone from this place, and never set foot in our lands again.
So be it, brother.
By absorbing the skull, Illidan transformed and he looked so demonic that his own twin brother didn't even recognize him. The powers granted by the skull did allow him to kill a Dreadlord and he did save the forest, but still, Malfurion and Tyrande, they condemned his actions and they banished him from their lands. This had cost them a powerful ally, but thankfully Thrall and Jaina would arrive to offer their help. In a dream, the Prophet Medivh had summoned them all together. He had summoned Malfurion and he explained his history with the Legion and his plan of stopping their invasion. Orcs, humans and night elves would have to team up. They would have to put away their differences, their hatred towards each other, for the greater good. They knew that Archimonde would make his way to the World Tree Nordrassil. There he could absorb the powers from the well, and while he did this he could also take away the Night Elves' immortality. Malfurion knew that they could never take Archimonde head on, so he came up with a plan. Each faction would do its job and they would slow down Archimonde. This would give Malfurion the time to summon the Guardians of the Forest.
You are very brave to stand against me, little human. If only your countrymen had been as bold, I would have had more fun scouring your wretched nations from the world.
Is talking all you demons do?
Stormrage, show yourself! Or do you intend to have mortal girls do all your fighting for you? You orcs are weak and hardly worth the effort. I wonder why Manaroth even bothered with you.
Our spirit is stronger than you know, demon. If we are to fall, then so be it. At least now, we are free.
The wretched little whelp actually hurt me. Are there none left to stand against the Legion? This is almost too easy. If I had known that this mortal resistance would be so weak, I would have launched this invasion centuries ago.
Archimonde's victory here has made him overconfident. He will not see the trap that I laid for him until it is too late.
At last, the way to the World Tree is clear. Witness the end, you mortals. The final hour has come.
It was Archimonde's arrogance that had him believe that he easily defeated the defenses of the world. He didn't pay attention to the small wisp gathering, and he had his eyes only on the World Tree Nordrassil. A thousand wisps detonated simultaneously, blowing up Archimonde as well as the World Tree. This cost the Night Elves their immortality, but it also stopped the Legion's invasion of Azeroth. A small price to pay for the survival of the world. Does this mean that Archimonde's story is completely done? Well, it is for the moment, but we also know that certain demons can never be killed on our planet. The only way to truly end them is killing them within the Twisting Nether. Is that the case for Archimonde? Well, we don't know, but it leaves a window open for Blizzard if they ever want to bring him back into the story. I'll leave it up to you to decide if that's a good thing or not. Is it possible that we will see Archimonde in Warlords of Draenor? It's possible, but much like Kil'jaeden, the question is, how big of a threat would Archimonde be? We already defeated him once in Warcraft 3 and once in the Caverns of Time. Does that leave any kind of challenge if you know that you've defeated him before? My personal take on it is that Archimonde would be an awesome fight, especially if they would team him up with someone like Gul'dan or maybe even Manoroth. That would be brilliant. I don't really care that I've defeated him before, since last time we had to blow up a tree, we had to gather 3 different armies, we had to destroy the Night Elves' immortality to destroy Archimonde. Imagine what a fight it could be if we don't have any tricks, just us against this demon lord. I would love to see it, but again, that's just my take on it. Which brings us to the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys, see ya!